Welcome back, Karrel.
Thank you
It's
so much.
such a pleasure to have you here again. I'm excited that it's happening so soon. You're a true warrior of light. You change so many lives. You organize retreats around the world. You're constantly studying with your teachers. You're teaching us and really helping people on their journey of awakening. You're a beautiful writer and an amazing storyteller, and I'm sure today we're going to hear some amazing stories.
I'll do my best.
You always do. And I know we wanted to touch up on some relationships. I think that's a really important topic. Romantic relationships, but also relationships between people. There's so much, that we
What is
can
the
learn
most important relationship you ever had in your life?
with myself.
True. Why?
Yes, correct answer.
Why?
Well, I think if I learn to show up for myself without any defenses and illusions, then I'm able to show up fully for others as well.
You know, the cliches, if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think most people say it so often that they don't even know what it means.
True.
Right? It's like, if you love yourself, I'm like, why? Why can't I love someone else? Why my love for myself is so crucial in this journey?
Mm-hmm.
Because love of self is, you can relate it, or it's the same thing as saying acceptance. And if I don't accept myself, the person that I will be in relation to our relationship is not going to be me. It's going to be me outside of my center. The second I leave my center, everything that follows is squeaky. And everything that will follow will be either coming from codependency, dependency, or an idealized self, projected in a relationship. What does that mean? An idealist self, when I'm single and it's only about me, then I'm idealizing what I should be, how my life should look like. Um, I compare my success, how it should be. I compare my health. I compare my fitness. I compare everything. So I have, and if I was who I want to be, I would look like this, and I will feel like that, and I will have these type of things, 3 cats and this and this.
Hmm.
But I'm looking at the current moment, and I don't have these things, or I'm not where I'm supposed to or want to be. And the funny thing is, you'll never be where your ideal self is, because once you supposedly reach what your ideal self was supposed to be, you already have your new target.
Mm-hmm.
So living in an idealized self means that you're never satisfied. And that's why the journey of self loving is a journey of actually finally just realizing that you, as you are, who you are, where you are in this exact moment, is all that you need. From that, we can relate. It's not that we can't relate if we don't love ourselves, because we do that all the time, right? Most of us don't love, at least not all the time,
Mm-hmm.
love ourselves. So, what happens when you tell me, what happens when I'm relating to you and I don't have, let's not call it love myself, if I'm not centered, or in other words, I'm not feeling very secure about who I am? Then what kind of interaction we will have?
Well, I would think the first is that everything that I say, you'll take it personally. You will somehow see it through your filter of insecurity, and therefore it's not going to be a very authentic conversation between us.
So if you're choosing that angle of insecurity, then there are two options. Either I will come in with a lot of insecurity, which leads to codependency. Do you love me? Do you love me? Because I don't believe that I'm lovable, or I don't think that what I'm presenting to you is someone that you would like to be in a relationship with. So I will come from a place of insecurity. And what is the exact opposite polar of insecurity? Arrogance. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I'm the greatest thing that ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you be in a relationship with me? And then what happens is that in both cases, I don't believe what I'm saying. I don't believe what I'm saying. Even when I'm over zealous and over exaggerating, then I know that's not really true. So how would you love me when I actually know, and beneath everything, that's not true? And when I'm coming from such level of insecurity, like, why would a woman or a partner be attracted to someone who's so insecure? And so you're basically already in both options, you're already setting up the game that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what another angle other than insecurity?
Mm-hmm.
You see, for me, it won't be interesting if I'm just here talking. Like, I want to prod your brain.
Okay.
So one angle is if I don't know who I am and I'm coming to relate with you, one is coming from insecurity or over security arrogance. Another angle can be absolute people pleasing.
Hmm.
So I will relate to you, which is another form of codependence, is that I'm not sure of who I am, so I'm starting inventing certain personalities to support what I think you think that I am. In other words, all of this game is we're playing with not what the reality really is. I love saying this, when we go to first date, we usually say, yeah, I have a amazing car at work and this, and I just sharing about all the amazing things that you post on Facebook. But the reality is that no one's going to go in first date to say, listen, usually by like day 10, I become super jealous. No one's going to do that because now the funny thing is that we are so trained to hide that it's second nature for us, that we live our lives out of a certain, you know, image of something that we're not. But that's natural for us. It doesn't take effort. We're not like doing it on purpose. Okay, let me hide. I'm going to a date. I'm going to hide. It's just so natural. And it's funny because we kind of were trained by this, by our parents in certain moments in time, that lying or white lying is not a big deal. For example, someone calls your mom and you pick up the phone and your mom says, "Tell him I'm not home." It's like, what are you teaching? Like, what are we learning? And many,
Yeah.
many behaviors like that teach us that to actually stand in the truth is something that we will be punished for or reprimanded for or definitely not celebrated for. So we relate in this undercurrent of untruthfulness. And the funny thing is that the person who suffers the most from that is actually ourselves.
Yeah.
Because what's the worst that can happen? They will say, okay, I'm not interested, and walk away, or in your relationship, let's break up and walk away. So, what we're talking about, self acceptance and self love, is to start a healing process around two things. One is to understand and live out of sovereignty, which is in relation to others, but mostly I'm talking about sovereignty in relation to yourself, that you're actually not afraid of your own thoughts, of your own process, of your own weaknesses, of your own faults. And from sovereignty, which is the opposite of sovereignty is codependency. So from codependency to interdependency, inner, not inter. That I depend on myself, I trust myself, I know who I am. And out of fullness and excess, I want to bring you in so we can share in that overflow of love and beauty and experiences that we want to share in life.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been on the path of accepting my dark sides as part of me, and it's quite an experience realizing that for so long I have been just denying that or closing my eyes to that, and there's certain patterns, certain behaviors that I have that I'm not the most excited about, but they're part of me. And the sooner I accept it and embrace it as a whole, I can go on and transform as a whole person instead of just let me bring the best side of me, and this one I'll always keep in the shadow because that's the part that's constantly sabotaging my success. That's the part that as soon as I'm ready to transform and go to the next level, this one that's been hiding in the shadows comes out and gets me and sabotages my success.
Okay, I agree, but that's the story that you're telling yourself. So you're
Sounds like a
saying
good story.
you are convinced that these ABC things that you don't like are the reason that you can't move forward. And if you do, these 1, 2, 3 monsters that are in the closet are going to jump out and ruin everything, right? And I see it from my own experience and my own journey that the monsters actually they're not the problem. There are two problems. One is that you're hiding them in the closet.
Mhm.
And second of all, that you're not playing with them and understanding that they have a place. So, what's in your way is the energy of hiding and needing to act as if you don't have them. So, let's imagine that it is like monsters from, like, let's say Monsters Inc.,
Mhm.
and they're inside of your closet and they're like making noises and they're like this. And someone comes and they're like, "Do you hear that?" No, no, there's nothing. There's like, you're like, start to move things around so they won't hear the monsters. But this, and what do I mean by that? People see us. We think the funny thing is we think that we hide. So often happens that you come to someone let's say me, and I say, I meet a friend, I say, no, Amber, I don't know how to tell you this. I've been really for years holding this, but I'm really battling with impatience. So I think she's going to say, really? I absolutely had no idea. I've never seen that in you. And most people will relate with, yeah, so you just hid for 3 years, you're those monsters. And you spent so much energy and so much you build up so many facades to hide the fact that you have these monsters. But then when they finally come out, everyone's like, let's play with them. They're like, fine, it's not a big deal. And you'll be like, so why did they do that? Why did I hide them for so long? And that's kind of the aha moment when you drop your codependency and step into sovereignty. It's not that suddenly you'll be that transformed human being that you think that you will be, because also that can fall under that same category. A sovereign being looks like, a non-codependent being looks like, right? So again, you see the game that the ego always has this like if then, if I will be free, if I will be if then, and I'm saying no, it's already right now. You're a sovereign being. That's your reality. You are a sovereign being. You do not need anyone, and your choices are solely your own. Every choice that you're making, you are never influenced by anything and anyone. No, how can that be? Because you are just choosing choices that are coming from an external source, but it's still your choice. Because no one is like standing with a gun and you have to marry that woman. You have to, nobody's doing this, right?
Yeah.
It's like your own process of thinking. It is tainted by a lot of fears. And the process is a process of self-loving, which is actually not such an easy journey. It's funny, it's often so much easier to build than it is to destruct. And the process of self-love is half destructive, half constructive. It's destructive in the destruction of certain limiting beliefs and ideas around weakness. It is constructive in around communication, expression, different layers of actually standing in your truth. So first, it starts with you standing in your weakness. I have these monsters. They're a part of me. And the first thing will be is to witness the fact that the people that you share this with do not freak out. They don't run to the hills. They actually will respond with a very surprising reaction. What is that?
They accept you.
They accept you, but what you just did is you've given them permission to do exactly the same. So they actually feel closer to you, more intimate to you, with you, and they actually have the opportunity to bring their monsters. So now all the monsters can play together. Now, let's assume that we have monsters that are conflicting. I have an anger monster, and you have a monster that when it's yelled at, it freaks out and runs to the hills. They're conflicting. But if we're not standing in that, meaning that you're trying to not have me know that you have an anger monster and I'm having to let you know that I have a scared monster, then eventually in a certain moment there will be an explosion. Your monster will explode, come out, scare mine, and I will run to the hills. So we're basically wasting a month, 2 months, 3 months, 7 months of hiding behind facades, and then the explosion happens. But what happens if very early on you say, listen, one of my monsters, I have many, but one of them is anger monster. And when my anger monster, because I've studied it, so we're such good friends, me and my anger monster, that when it comes out, all it needs is a hug, or you tell the person she needs a cupcake, just what this monster needs.
Yeah.
And the other person says, and when my scared monster comes, all I need is a sweet kiss here and to be told that it's all good. So now, when these two monsters are coming to the surface, you are no longer in that state of absolutely freaking out that the monster came out of the room or the closet. You're in a place of, I know what to do with this. I'm not afraid of my monsters, and I know that they're coming because they're a part of what it is to be human. So you see, for example, often when people get a really debilitating accident, they go to the hospital. Let's say they're in a wheelchair. The first thing that the hospital does is to give them what? A psychologist that's going to help them deal not with the fact that they don't have a leg, but with everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
And then when they get eventually to a place where they're complete, let's say 10 years down the road, they're in a very different place. They don't need to like feel shame. All these things that were in the beginning stages of facing a weakness are no longer a part of the weakness. They know how to live it with it. They go to their vacations. They know to look for a hotel with a ramp. But it's no longer for like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do anything, which is the first stage. Exactly the same with your emotional disabilities.
Mm.
I have anger. That's how I was brought to be. That's what it is. Maybe I need a ramp, maybe I need a hug, maybe I need whatever it is. But
Yeah.
if you don't have the acknowledgement of it, you're just going to suffer. You have the acknowledgement of it. Now let's see how I work with it. Now let's see how I move on. There are so many people in the field of motivational speaking that are coming without serious disabilities, without hands, without this. Why are people so excited to go to them, for example? Do you know?
Because they've accepted every part of them and they just radiate this light and confidence.
And people say, well, I have maybe not a physical disability, but I believe that I have so many disabilities. If someone like that, that externally I can see their disabilities, he can be so confident that I have no excuse, right? But what that person is giving them is permission to stand in their weakness.
Mm.
See, it all comes back to the same thing. When we finally, and I'll tell you, I've said this for years, stand in your weakness,
Yep.
stand in your, even to myself, stand in your weakness. I think it took like 10 years to actually really. I remember one situation where it happened, and I really got in a conversation with someone that I don't remember if it was around impatience or around anger. And I literally said, I don't know how it happened. I can say divine grace. I just said, I'm so triggered right now and so angry. And all I can respond, please know that anything coming forward from my mouth is not coming out of choice. I'm just really angry and frustrated and impatient.
Mm.
And I expected, as usual, that their response will be, then don't talk to me. And they say, I really understand. That's it.
Wow.
And it diffused everything. It's just like, actually, I'll share with you one of the reasons that I stand in my weakness so proudly. And I'm sure I have weaknesses that I don't, by the way. There are some monsters that are still hidden, very far. Um, but I lived in an ashram for 13 years in a cult. And when I came out, I remember the first thing, I'm like, I'll never be able to date. Who would want a person who lived for 13 years under complete brainwash? And I would never talk about it, not on radio, not on anywhere. It was just so scary for me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of psychological damage that comes with that. So I had to go therapy, and I had to go a very deep process to understand it's okay. I'm a different person, whatever. But for many, many years, I could see that an absolute flaw, and a flaw that will prevent me from living a happy life or having relationships, etc., etc., teaching, you name it. It took a while to be able to flip the flaw, meaning to understand, okay, actually, it gave me a really amazing perspective of life. And it allows me to be a really amazing teacher because I understand very quickly how people put you in that pedestal place and want you to give them all the answers. And because my freedom was taken from me, I know how to help people stand for their freedom. And I can smell when they
Mm.
play with themselves and or like tell different stories. So in the same way, I eventually got to a place where I realized, okay, that was a weakness. Let's put it in those terms. And it was a very painful experience, blah, blah, blah. But it made me an unbelievable human being, amazing, and a teacher. And I can talk about this. And I'm happy to share my weaknesses, which I understand is something that allows other people around me to do the same. And I'm giving them the same permission that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So it's coming down to one thing: choice to disarm and try. And it's really trial and error. You keep going with it, and you'll just keep collecting positive experiences. I can tell you from, let's say, 1 to 100 times that I stand in a weakness, I'll have two that the person like, yeah, you're like that. so I'm walking away. 98 will be like more closeness, more intimacy,
Yeah,
more truth.
makes sense. It really does. And you are an amazing teacher. And what I really like about you is that you're also a student. You're constantly studying with your teachers. You're curious. You're hungry for more transformation. You're learning from us as well, which is amazing. You're the most humble person I've ever met, and you have so much to offer. So thank you.
Humility is nothing than knowing your place in the divine plan. You know what it means? That this cap does have no problem with being a cap. It knows someone said, but it's just a cap, just plastic. So yeah, but without me, all the water goes out.
Hmm.
So I'm actually in the bottle. I'm the most important part. And then the bottle says, well, I'm the most important part. So they are equally important. They have their divine plan. They have their exact meaning or purpose. So the reason that you say what you're saying is because I think I just came to that understanding and that I just feel comfortable with where I am at in my divine plan. In the field that I'm at, which is development of consciousness, at this stage of my life, after so many years of doing this, I can tell you, I personally will no longer trust a teacher that has no teacher of their own, especially in a field that is so subtle and so easy to trick yourself that you have all the answers and that you know what you're doing. It's a field that you need to have someone above you. And one of my red flags should have been with my guru that was demanding complete, is that he didn't never had. He would say different people and he would change them, and but they had no conditions to him or no demands or no requirements. Today in the field that I'm in, I have many different teachers, but I would say one more thing about having teachers in this field. I have another requirement, which is very important to me. If I come to a teacher that I believe is a teacher of consciousness that I would like to follow, or shamanism in different fields, I will ask him, I say, Stas, would you like to be my teacher? There's only one answer that will actually make me choose to follow them, is if they say, yes, would you like to be my teacher?
Oh, nice.
So recognition, meaning that we are all masters, maybe you can teach me something that in a different field, but I have a lot to teach you in my field.
Hmm.
And so far, the teachers I've chosen have asked that question, so I'm happy about it. And it's not necessarily in words, it's the type of relationship.
Yeah.
Don't say, oh, he didn't say it, so no. The interaction between us, that they see my greatness. And I have to say, I do that. Every person that sits with me or studies with me, it's the same thing. And it's not that they need to ask me or I'm asking them, but that's how the relationship is. There's a beautiful saying in Hebrew that goes from I have I have become wiser because of all of my students. And it's interesting because people around you, if you're a good student of life, then you realize that every situation that you come across is there for a purpose and a reason. And if you're attentive with your friends, then you'll see, wow, they have so much to teach me. There's so much going on, right? There's so much drama in our lives, people breaking up and this. So we can just put it in that layer and just
Yeah.
say, okay, they're breaking up and this. But if you really care about them, but if you really care about your own development, then what's underneath? Let's say there's a couple and they're choosing not to be together. I'm looking at that, what's in him I can find in myself in the way that he expressed himself, and what's in her that I haven't said of me. Why I didn't set the right boundaries or why I expressed, and I always find. And that's why what I have to answer, what I have to share, people say it's so resonant. How do you know? And I'm like, because
Hmm.
it's me. So I'm teaching you, I'm teaching myself. I write a lot of prayers. Almost all of my prayers, I read them, they're channeled. So I don't know what I'm writing. But after I read it, like, yeah, sure. It's like, that's what I need to change, you know?
Yeah. Let's talk about setting up healthy boundaries, because I think that's, what you mentioned first, standing in your weakness and saying, these are my monsters. This is definitely great transparency to start any relationship, but also setting up healthy boundaries of saying, I'm comfortable with this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not comfortable with this, and not being afraid to actually say it, because that's the challenging part, I think. Trying to be trying not to hurt anyone's feelings, and in the long run, it actually turns out to be worse.
Right.
So how do we set up healthy boundaries?
So you said it so beautifully. The reason we people please, or the reason that we don't set boundaries, don't want to hurt their feelings. But the truth is, we don't want to hurt our own feelings because we don't want to feel rejected. So we have this story. Oh, I'm doing it for her. I'm doing it for him. Not true. You're doing it for yourself. You don't want to feel that the person is saying, Stas is a bad guy. Kai is a horrible human being. We trick ourselves to think I'm so compassionate. I'm so
Mm.
caring that I'm doing this because I don't want to hurt them. No, because if you don't want to hurt them, then you think what is really on their behalf. Let's say I don't want to be in a relationship with them, then the best thing to do is to set a very clear boundary from day one and say, this is not going to work between us. Let's create something else. If I do it early enough, everything that will follow will be healing and helpful for everybody. I don't want to stand in my weakness, and I don't want to face my fear of rejection, fear of aloneness, and everything else. So I'm creating this beautiful story that I don't want to hurt someone, and that's why I'm not stating a boundary. One. Two, we don't state boundaries because this is a learned behavior that we have from parents and society, that you should always say yes and you should always be in favor. And the truth is, one of my friends, Monique Darling, she says, saying no to you is saying yes to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am, if I love myself and I'm in my center and I'm in a sovereign state of being, I understand that boundaries are what helps healthier, non-boundaried expression. What does it mean? Taizen Deshimaru, Zen master, he says, no matter how abstract the art, if you want to hang it on a wall, it needs a frame. What we mean by that, if we want to interact with it, we want to present it, we want to have more than one person in that abstract expression of myself, it needs to have certain boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
With kids, we can't just leave them in this room, do whatever you want. They can put their hands in the electricity, they can hurt the cameras, they can damage themselves, right? So you won't say that a mom that puts boundaries to their kids, she's mean. No, she just sees things in a little bit more mature way and she understands that she needs to protect them.
Yeah.
So she will let them play with some boundaries. How they play and what they do exactly, that's their creative expression. So with that idea, it's the same between you and me. I need to create a relationship between us, which is abstract, that we will find the form that it finds within a frame. So I will create for you, this is the type of frame that I want us to have. Friends, lovers, colleagues, whatever it is. That's the frame. If I if I'm mature with myself, I'll be mature enough to see if you're reading my cues or you're not reading my cues. If you're not reading my cues, meaning, let's say I'm dating someone and I'm saying this should be a friendship and they keep on asking me for romantic dates, it only says to me two things. I have yet to express myself clearly. And the important thing is that we completely don't care don't care in terms of self-study about the other person. We have to understand our own, that's why I'm saying sovereignty. We have to understand our motivations, because once you do, all of your relationships that will come from a heart that is standing in sovereignty will just work. Any relationship that you can look back or present, past or present or future, that is built on a place where I'm people pleasing, I'm not sure why I said that, they're responding in a way that I don't understand the response, it means that still there's conflict inside of you, that you're still hiding from yourself, conflicted with yourself, afraid of yourself, not willing to admit, well, all I want is sex and I don't know how to say that. That's a valid answer to yourself. Of course, with the person, you'll say that in a proper way, but to yourself, you need to learn to be in the truth. That's why I'm always saying that spiritually searching to be a spiritual seeker, there's only one requirement to this game, and that is sincerity. Without sincerity with self, if you're not willing to own what's really going inside of you, you'll just run in circles for the rest of your life and imagine that you're advancing in your spiritual whatever. Has to be, this is what I want. If that's really my truth, I'm lying. Everything else that I'm saying is a lie. That's really my truth. When you will stand in that, then the type of boundaries that you'll have to set are quite easy. That's what I want. Is this good for you? These are my values. For me, for example, I don't want to have kids. So I can go, most relationships that I've been to, either they want to have kids or whatever. I have to say this day one, not in my karma, not in my plan. I can go in and say, wow, I'm so attracted to this person. So let me just play the game a little bit. I'll say it. I don't have to say it right away. I can say it after a few months, No, I know my values. I know what I want. So I have to. And this is a simple example, but you can say that with so many different things. I really, really, but in order for me to be able to do that, I need to know what I want. I need to know who I am. I need to know what my values are. And for that, we need to have a process of introspection, which is the journey for self love, understanding like a scientist, research, research, research. And life is what the most beautiful lab. So every relationship that you're confronted with is the best opportunity. Okay. Let's say you just ended a relationship or something happened. It's such a great opportunity to journal and understand why did, not why, usually we come out of a relationship and, he, she, them. No, what I said before, you almost don't care about them. Good luck. We're not together, so I love you. Bless you on your journey. Now, what happened? Why did I act in this way? What did I feel? What did I say? That's why the funny thing is that in truth, when people separate, there should be some kind of almost a celebratory feeling to it. Because if we were not able to be truthful with ourselves in this setting, obviously we will not be truthful with each other. Like, how would we even possibly think that that's possible? So it didn't work. We're moving forward. What they do, it's up to them. What I do, and by the way, if we're not doing the introspection and we're not looking, the next person will be almost exactly the same. Because I didn't change. So the universe, like, okay, let's continuously create the same situation to give you this option, to give you this, what you were actually asking for, right? But the opposite is to really, really care about yourself and your spiritual growth and to do this introspection and really sit with it. I often say that to learn codependency is probably the best possible thing you can do for your relationship. Like, actively read books, understand. I actually started writing a process of like a questionnaire. How do you know if you're codependent? Usually people don't go like beyond question 4. You don't need to continue. Oh my God, shoot, this is scary. Because we're trained for this. We're trained for codependency.
Yeah, I think the process of introspection, that's brilliant, because that's why people keep repeating the same patterns, myself included. And because when a traumatic event happens, very often, instead of learning the lesson from it, from my personal experience, I try to distract myself with something else, with different emotions, try to forget the pain and kind of deal with it later, and then later never comes. And that's why the relationship keeps repeating over and over, the same relationship, just different people. And that process of introspection is so, can you maybe expand a little bit more? Because I think it's so, it's so easy to make mistakes in this process and not do it properly or like with full intention. Like, for example, meditation. I used to sit and meditate and I thought I was doing great until I realized nothing was really happening because I didn't have that intention. I was kind of doing it more for just put the check mark, instead of like really fully submerging myself. Or journaling. I would be like, oh, I think that was, good journaling. I expressed my gratitude and this and that. Good. But not really waiting for that moment to the truth to come out, the truth that I'm facing myself about myself. So how can we expand this process and really make it that we're mindful about our daily lives, about our relationships, about the choices we make, to, instead of waiting to go to a therapy, that we can do this every single day with ourselves.
It's beautiful because you asked almost four different directions in this. So let's start with introspection. I'll at the end I'll say a couple of things about meditation, because the truth is most of us, we say we're practicing meditation, but you need to study a little bit to understand why you're not even in the right direction. But let's talk about introspection. For introspection to happen to you, you need only one thing, and that is curiosity. Albert Einstein said that stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results. So the question is, how many more relationships and how much more pain do you need? 10 more, 5 more years, you'll do the same thing and hurt. There has to be a point that you're like, no, it's just not doing this anymore. So that is change out of desperation, meaning that it hurts so bad. The next one will cheat on you and hurt you and take your divorce with the kids and whatever, that you'll be so that I cannot handle it, and you'll be like, no, I gotta do something about it, either therapy or meditation or yoga or who knows what. That's the desperation path, which it works, very important. And then we have the inspiration path, that you're like, okay, I think I got it. I'm saturated with enough pain. I want to invite something that's really, really beautiful. So then you go through processes of what I call invocations of understanding, which, for example, you personally know many of my prayers, and the prayers that I write, they usually start with the desperation and end with the inspiration. The desperation means recognition. So I'm just recognizing what it is for what it is. And you can take every field in your life, let's say relationships, and start with the desperation. What did not work? Sit, journal this. And again, not she did not, he did not, but I, for whatever reason, internally could not express my boundaries healthily. I, for whatever reason, could not say my truth. I, for whatever reason, realized very quickly that she's asking me to do this and this that I don't want to. I have sex and when I don't want to. Like, what is my truth? What is very quickly happening? So that is the desperation piece. And it's very important, because without really recognition of the reality of where I'm at, we can move forward. And then the next piece, the inspiration piece. So what am I calling in? Not, people talk about relationships. So she needs to be blonde. No, again, not about her. How do I want to feel and what kind of person I want to be internally when I'm in a relationship? How, basically, it should be not very different from who you are when you are by yourself. Mm-hmm. You should be fully expressed and healthy boundaries and all these things, which brings us back to why self-love is so important. Because if I'm not happy with who I am, it's not going to change in a relationship. It's actually going to be stronger. They are going to be a mirror for you, in a similar and different way. When you study with a spiritual teacher, there's almost always this feeling that he sees a little bit too much, right? There's like, how did he, right? Why is it like that? Because the difference is that they are living in that frequency or energy of introspection all the time. Mm. So when you're in their presence, that's what you feel. You feel like, ooh, I forgot about introspection for a while. I've been in my mundane and I need to come back to that. And that's where they're important, to study with different teachers and study books and different things like that, which is another way of saying, keep your thought very elevated, which is something that I have to say when I go to Brazil, my teacher there, one of the reasons I go is so I will feel that uncomfortability, that constantly being pushed, that every person you talk to, it's so elevated and so high. But those conversations really confront you with looking and introspectively asking yourself questions. When our thoughts are not too elevated, we kind of stay in the Netflix world. And if you see what is commercialized to you, is those behaviors that we're talking against. So to one thing towards the positive is really, really surround yourself with people, books, movies that keep your mind elevated and kind of remind you, what is it that I'm actually here to do? What is my divine plan? Your divine plan, in let's say the terminology of yoga, is enlightenment. In the terminology of where I would term it, I would say you're here to evolve. You're here to find liberation from the lack of boundaries and all those psychological issues that we've been
Mhm.
talking about. You are trying to liberate from that and what? Fall in love with yourself. What do I have? What do I surround myself with in my life that constantly inspires that? Anytime that I walk away and I forget that that's actually why I'm here, it's a wasted week, month, year, right? I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just I want to say about meditation. Meditation, Krishnamurti says so beautifully. He says, meditation will only happen once. What does he mean by that? Uh, People tell me, yeah, I do meditations 3 times a day or once a week, and I do it for 3 minutes, and I do meditation in Kripalu Yoga, and I do meditation, Kripalu Yoga, and I do meditation. Meditation is not something you can do in the same way that you cannot do stas. What do you need to do in order to be stas? When you wake up in the morning, what do you do to be this? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a process of observing what is as it is. In other words, absolute self-acceptance.
Mhm.
Beautiful story. Haven't told the story, so
Story
beautiful
time.
story about Mahakaship, one of the students of the Buddha. One time, Buddha came and he came to his lecture hall, and there were 1,000 monks all around, including Mahakaship, just one of them. And every time he would come and give a lecture for sometimes 10 hours even. And that time, Makaship came and he sat, and not Makaship, Buddha came and he sat, and he didn't say anything for a long time. And everyone started whispering, what's going on? And he's just, and then after like an hour of silence, he brings out a lotus flower just like that. And suddenly, in the back of the room, Akaship starts laughing hysterically. And Buddha says, please approach. So he comes and he gives him the lotus, and in that way recognizes his enlightenment. So people ask Makashik, why you became enlightened from this? Like no lecture, no explanation, nothing. Why that lotus flower? Why that? He says, you know what I realized? That I come here every day for the last few years with a certain expectation that something is going to happen, that there will be some aha, that there will be some explosion. I will see light and then I will become enlightened. And I suddenly realized when he brought that he's not waiting for anything and nothing is supposed to happen. So Krishnamurti says there will be a moment where enlightenment for you will be, I love saying this, the moment that you're ready to gift yourself the gift of yourself. What's in the way for you to gift yourself the gift to yourself? Just yourself, right? So there will be a moment that you'll no longer expect to be different, to be better at setting boundaries, to be worse in setting boundaries, to be better in relationships, not to be better in relationships. You will just drop all of it and you'll just accept that's who I am. Fucked up, amazing, impatient, loving, all of it. And
Wow.
that will be the only meditation you'll ever have to do because that moment is in some kind of way the end of the game. The end of the game was just the beginning of your life. Until that moment, we say in Judaism, we were as if dreamers. So they call your non enlightened state just a dream
Mm.
because all those fears and it's just a dream. And the awakening, you might have mystical powers and mystical experiences, but that's not the point. The point is you'll be able to, like Makaship, just laugh at yourself. How ridiculous it was that I was hiding from myself. Who was I trying to cheat? By not standing in my boundaries, but not standing in my weakness, by trying to be something that I'm not. What am I doing? Why? not realizing that all this energy that I'm using to hide from the world is only me hiding from myself. Right?
Wow.
Ouch.
I really don't know. That's the recipe for awakening. I really don't know what else can follow.
The thing,
We
it is
we
a
can
recipe
just
for
practice
awakening,
that.
but the problem is that we need to trick ourselves a lot in order to accept. Okay, story time. There was a mayor who was also a yogi, and he has been going to this yogi for many years. And every time the yogi would give him different techniques. Okay, now do vinyasa, and now do this meditation and Mystic Rose meditation, standing on your head, and nothing. He's still not enlightened. It's like it's a very advanced yogi, meditator, or whatever, but he's not enlightened. And then after, I don't know, 20 years of this, the mayor once comes to the guru and says, okay, I have the final technique. And it says, and that's it. Like, you guarantee, because I just came to quit. Like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, it's not happening. It's like, I've done everything and not happening. So he said, yes, this is the final technique. Okay, what do I need to do? It says, well, dear mayor, go to the center of town, come to the fountain, stand inside of the water, lift one leg in the air, have one finger in your nose and one finger pointing the sun for 10 minutes. You'll be enlightened. No, I don't. Can't be. Says, that's the final technique. Says, I can't be. Said, first of all, I can't do it because I'm the mayor. You know, if I do this, everyone will make fun of me. Said, listen, you've wasted 20 years. You don't want to do the final thing for you to become enlightened?
Hmm.
This is the last thing. Says, okay. So he goes and he does it. And of course, everyone in town is like, look at the mayor. This is ridiculous. They're throwing tomatoes and everything. And 10 minutes are over. Nothing happened. So he runs back to the guru and says, nothing happened. The guru says, finally. So the problem of your teacher is that sometimes they need to put you in a lot of those conditions until you'll realize that standing in your weakness is not an effort. It's not something you fight for. It's not a technique. It's just a realization. I have nothing to hide. Everything is already seen. Everything is out in the open. The only person who's suffering from not living my life is me, not my really even my relationships. Because we say, but if I continue like this, I will not attract the person. That's not even true. Also, you are going to still be yourself, so you are going to attract the person that will reflect who you are, not who they are.
Yeah.
I need a nicer looking partner, and I need a more rich person. The person that will come to you is that most perfect person to reflect to you exactly at this moment what you need to work at this moment and what you need to accept yourself. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less.
Hmm.
Scary thought, no?
Yeah, it's I'm watching my mind go through, as you say, this just accept yourself. There's no technique, no instrument, there's nothing to do, and I'm watching my mind. But there's, how often do we do this? Should I do this in the morning? And how does this work? It's like the process of letting go. Just release the fist, and that's it.
Right,
There's no special technique or recipe how many times a day to do it. It's just
right.
this.
But
But
I can tell you the recipe, because there is a recipe for anything, right?
just give us the recipe.
The recipe is this. You're telling me you're understanding that all these behaviors are you can relate them to a closed fist, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is tension. And I'm telling you, open the hand and have no tension. So you say, how do I do this? How do I do this? How? It's not like, even if I do it, I immediately come back.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand already that the direction you're going is this. And you, with your awareness, keep going back and forth, back and forth. So the recipe in the first stage is actually to do the opposite. More tension, more tension, more tension until you get to exhaustion. And now you can't even do it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I said before, the depression part. You have to face, journal with yourself. Who am I? Well, that's the foundational question, right? Ramana Maharshi, all these teachers, Papaji, why did they say it? We can take it into an esoteric, what's your name before you were born, Buddhist, blah, blah, blah. But who am I in relationships? What can I not say? Why am I not able to say This is what I want. This is what I don't want. This is your journey, your journaling journey. I love journaling. I think it's very important in that way because it's a reflective process. It's a reflective process that happens in the mind. So it's not a meditative process because the meditative process is to only observe the mind without any interference. We said a meditative process will be a result of a more wholesome mind. So the if let's say the mind processes this and this and this and this and this and this, meditation is not the hand. Meditation is the eyes. It's just looking distantly and like, okay, beautiful, and I don't care if this is what it's doing.
Mm.
Not that I don't care. It's like just a natural part of life.
Yeah.
In the same way that Alan Watts will tell you, in the same way that trees never compare themselves to each other. The tree will not say, "Oh, that's such a beautiful tree," and I'm not so beautiful. I'm like this, look how tall that tree is. They don't do that. The mental process of the human being is constant comparison between me and you, me and her and me, her and the other guy, me and my who I used to be, and me who I'm supposed to be. As long as comparison is there, all your energy is leaking, and you can be in a meditative state.
Mm-hmm.
To get there, so so one will say, so how do I get there? That's a comparative statement. I'm not there, and you're still comparing, right? So drop it for now. Drop the meditation, that enlightenment, that will follow. Focus on where you're at, and where you're at is observation, understanding, going deeply through your psychological process, your spirit, which is also spiritual, your psychosomatic process, where in my body I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And there are a billion ways to do that. There's so many processes and, yoga, meditation, everything that you do. The only thing that I will add, journaling, everything, is with the curiosity as if your life depends on it.
Mm-hmm.
Zen master and his disciple are going by the river, and the master says, Master, I really want enlightenment. Why isn't it happening? You know the story?
No.
And he says, You really want it? He says, I really want it. He says, You want it more than anything? More than anything. More than you love your family. More than my family. More than you love your wife. More than my wife. More than you love pasta. More than I want enlightenment. I said, okay. So he comes, he takes him to the river, and he dunks his head into the water, and he holds him like almost like drowning him. And then in the last second before he turns blue, he lets him out. He lets him out, and then the guy, and he says, "In that last second, what did you want?" I said, "There." He said, "Well, when you will want enlightenment like that, it will happen." So I'm not saying drown yourself, but want your liberation from your condition like that. Understand it every day, not by force, but out of curiosity, out of I want to. You will invest time in your process. If you, like you said, like me and everyone else, just we have a checklist that I meditated. That meditation, you can check it off. It's not meditation.
Yeah.
You check and check it off. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us that spiritual practice, we spoke about it recently, spiritual practice is only that which is joyfully performed. Meaning that I want to meditate because I'm excited. What's inside? What's inside of me? What's going on? Why do I say what I say? Why do I do what I do? Not because, okay, if I will meditate, I will find that out. I want to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is not something that you struggle staying alert and awake. No, that's not meditation. Meditation is when you have something in your life that becomes a life or death question for you. Like, I will not go into another relationship until I sit and understand why I'm not saying my truth. And you will sit there and you'll have so much energy. It's not going to be okay, let's think about it. It's like, I have to know. I want to know. Deep, and you know what happens? Very interestingly. Suddenly, when you approach yourself with this level of curiosity, there's a different power suddenly available to you. You have access to what we call divine grace. I always say that so many people relate, especially in the yoga world, they go to different deities and they ask for help. So, you want help in relationships? In Brazil, you go to Mamãe Oxum, you offer different things. Mamãe Oxum, please explain to me this relationship. I really want this. And in Hinduism, we go to who is the helper god? Ganesh. Right? Ganesh, I need a car, I have a problem. So imagine that somewhere there up in the sky and wherever he is, he has an office. And he gets the letters from all the people in the world with their requests. So one day he comes, he gets a letter, says Amber. He opens the letter. Dear Ganesh, I really would like singing bowls. That's really what I want. So he says, I don't have. I am a spiritual being. I can maybe do an Indiegogo. I cannot help you with this. So he puts the letter aside. And then in the next one, I want a car. Can't do that. I want a relationship. Don't have that. Like that, like that. One time, he gets a letter. It says Stas and says, Ganesh, I want to understand myself. Ah, that I can do. So for him, it's a celebration. You know, like in Staples, every time that there's like 100 winners, they have like a same thing. It's like finally, someone is actually reaching out to divine assistance for something we can actually do. We don't have Lamborghinis, we don't have girlfriends, we don't have Bitcoin, we don't have all these things. Guys, stop asking. If you want to know who you are, yes, that we can help you. And that's why when you meditate with that attitude, you will feel it. It will be very different than any meditation you have ever had before. Suddenly you say, meditation, you actually have energy. You're actually plugged in. Then you'll feel it. So that's why Krishnamurti said, there's only one meditation that you'll have, and that's when it's plugged in. When that energy, that question, all the questions have been answered, and there's only one question, and which he will say is the question, who am I? But what he means by that, it's not who am I, like, what's my name? Like, I'm realizing I'm a divine being. What is my divine nature? But it will be such a question that will not even have words. It will just be energy. It will just be a waterfall of alive and alertness. And then the answer will be you also. You will open your eyes to understanding that you're the answer and you always have been. That is the moment that you gift yourself the gift in yourself and you will laugh. You know, that's nothing left. You know, it's very interesting. When we came here to this world as a baby, what's the first thing that you did? You cried, right? The first thing you came in. The first thing that's going to happen when you come out the other side is that you're going to laugh. Because you here, when you're crying, why? Because the first second that you came in, you realized you immediately enter into the world of forgetfulness. A second before, I knew everything. I knew why I'm coming here. I know what my lessons are. I know why that relationship will come. Everything is all clear. Not only all clear, I charted it for myself. I know what I'm going into. So I'm very confident when I'm about to come. And the funny thing is that in the other side, when we're prepared to come here, they tell us, you know that you're not going to remember this conversation. So once you put on that goggles of the AIM virtual reality and you're on the other side, everything we've planned, that you know it's going to be hard, and you know that you're going to have that breakup, and you know that all these things, you'll not remember. And you're like, yeah, I know. But you're in a moment of realization, so you can imagine how it's going to feel. Once you are born, you're like, oh my God, it's gone. I don't know who I am. And that's why you cry. And the funny thing is that the second you come out of here, you're like, oh my God, I was so stupid. Like I did this. I created this whole game. And you will laugh hysterically. You'll be like, oh my God, why I was so sad that relationship that didn't work. I planned it because that led to that amazing relationship later. So why I was so depressed in that moment is so ridiculous. So you start to see things in perspective. The enlightened beings in all traditions always, they laugh because that's the realization. It's like, what are we stressing about? It's all good. It's all in the divine plan. And the funny thing is that as you're stressing, meaning that you're holding on to the thing, the cookie jar analogy, right? So Big Bird, he puts his hand in the cookie jar and he holds the cookie and then he can't take hand out. So he doesn't have the cookie and he doesn't have the hand. So he goes to Elmo and says, Elmo, can you break the jar so I can have the cookie? And then what Elmo says, just open your hand, let out the cookie, and pour the cookie out. You have both. Same thing with life. That I need this relationship, and this is horrible. All you need to do is let go of the cookie. You have it. Ellen Watts says there are two reasons why you don't know what you want. And the two reasons for what you don't know what you want is the same question as who am I? Says the first is because you have it. And the second is because you are not the object of your own knowing. What did I just say? Your eyes cannot see themselves. Your teeth cannot bite themselves. Fire cannot burn itself. Light cannot illumine itself. It is the source. You are the source. In that way, you are not the object of your own knowing. You are the knower. You're not the knowing. It is not intended for you to awaken to the fact that you know who you are. You are trying to not know, not understand, just be. And if you're just being, meaning that there's no understanding, there's no attempt, there's no struggle, then you are in a state of everything we've talked about all this time, of absolute acceptance, that this is just okay. And that's exactly what needs to happen. And when you do that, it equates, you can study all the books of Ellen Watson, Krishnamurti, and all the different masters of all time, but basically a big bird said it. Open your hand. That's all it is. There's nothing much more elevated than that. You can read the whole Theravada Buddhism and understand, and Big Bird already said it. Open your hand. The cookie's already there.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you for explaining it. So, I mean, I guess this is the easiest you can explain it, and now it's about us just opening the hand and enjoying it. And
Me too. I don't have the cookie.
thank you for your time, Kai, and I look
Always.
forward for your return over and over and over again. Each episode we can have our own theme. Today relationship is so important. I really hope that
I want to thank you for something.
yes.
I asked you to invite me, and I know you like to talk to me, but you know that when I come to talk to you, I mostly talk about you, and mostly talk about me, right?
Yeah.
You know what it shows me? That you're standing in your weakness, and that you're curious about how to change yourself. And that's why I come. That's the reason. I have no interest to talk about someone, people watch and they will have their own experience, but I'm talking to you. And I know that because of your vulnerability and my vulnerability and Amber's vulnerability and everyone that's allowing themselves to open themselves to this conversation, what is being talked about will have the impact that it needs. If this is something external, that we're just watching some information, it's been done before. We're not changing from information. We change, I found, from standing in our weakness. So whenever you're ready for another round.
Thank you, Kai.
I love you. Thank you.
I am ready, and we're gonna do it very soon. Would you like to mention? I know you mentioned last time you're a very difficult person to connect with, but where can people find you? Where can they follow you?
My website, kai.karrel.com. I lately am posting a lot of quotes and stuff on Instagram. So kai.karrel on Instagram. And I will just share that I'm just about to open a new course that's called Self-Love, the Missing Manual, which will be an online course, and I'm very excited about it. This will be a part of the theme, but it's, let's call it a guided process of how to journal, how to understand what we were talking about, just guiding people through this process. And I've been working on it for the last few months, and I'm so enjoying it because as I'm writing it, I'm like amazed by how far I am from self-loving myself. So I'm enjoying the process and exploring and creating it. So that's coming out soon. And yeah, Facebook, the usual.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Sign me up for the course. I'm in.
And think clever,
Yes, think clever. Thank you, Kai.
Thank you.
Look forward to talking to
Feel
you
clever.
soon.
That should be your next podcast.
2.0, version 2.0.
2.0. Thank you so much. It was
Thank
such
you.
a pleasure as always. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.